And let me go on to say this too, that we're not gonna allow any cheering, no clapping, none of that stuff. It's not gonna be any applauding, it's just gonna be strictly business. We're gonna keep this thing business, and this will make it work for us and for y'all, where everybody gets to be heard, and we don't step on any toes here. But I'm not gonna allow any cheering in this thing. No hand clapping, no nothing. And so, I'll remember that, and I'll warn you one time, and after that, then we'll take procedure against it. So, anyway, I guess we need a vote.
You need a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question?
No, sir, not right now. No, sir.
A motion from Ellis and a second.
Well,
from
I'll amend my
Carroll.
motion to include those items that Tom spoke about.
Okay. All right.
Inclusive of it.
No, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So be it. Thank you, Tom. Okay.
Authority of the Industrial Building Authority to do certain things, one of which is make a loan to the Paulding County Airport Authority for its taxiway widening project. There's been discussions with the local delegation about possibly introducing local legislation pursuant to the constitutional amendment creating the Industrial Building Authority in 1962. There was a provision in that constitutional amendment that allowed the General Assembly to further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority. I've had conversations with several members of the local delegation and asked them to consider supporting or introducing legislation that would further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority. This is simply a resolution from the Airport Authority, who's also a party to that lawsuit because they were the recipient of the loan from the Industrial Building Authority, asking the local delegation to consider or approving a resolution that supports local legislation that would further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority. Specifically, those duties, there's a provision in the constitutional amendment that says that the IBA has the power to build manufacturing facilities, assembly plants, and other things like that. And the IBA's position is that that language is not restrictive, that that's simply illustrative. That's just examples of things that they can do. It's not an exclusive list. And that's basically what the legislation we would be asking the delegation to further prescribe and define those duties and clarify that point that's contained in the constitutional amendment. From the Airport Authority standpoint, you would just simply be, again, adopting a resolution saying that you're in support of legislation that really doesn't directly affect the Airport Authority, but indirectly does, and especially in this case where there's a loan to the Airport Authority.
We need to adopt a resolution.
You have a resolution, and you have one. You have the backup. And Mr. Slaughter sent it to you yesterday. And all the resolution says is it just supports the adoption of local legislation to further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority.
So basically, it's an update.
It's a clarification, really. I mean, it's just really to try to clarify. In my legal opinion, it's not asking them to add any additional authority that they don't already have. But obviously, there are people that disagree with that position, and there's a lawsuit pending right now that will ultimately make that determination.
Anybody got anything to say, Tom, about it? Debate?
Well, the resolution also clarifies past practices, and it is something that is prevalent across the state of Georgia. This enabling amendment was written or was passed in 1962, and so much of the world has changed. There were a lot of terms we use today were not even spoken or known at the time. So it is an update. The Constitution does provide it to be changed by statute rather than amendment, and that's what the local legislation would do, and it would probably more narrowly define the parameters where they have been broadly interpreted in the past. And with that, I would move the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, need a motion to go into closed session.
For the purpose of litigation, I'll
Or
second.
litigation. All in favor?
Aye.
Back to you, ma'am.
It ain't easy getting old. Okay, go, Tom.
All right, go.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. When my parents built their dream home in Paulding Forest, it was a beautiful place to live. before it became an aviation hellscape of sometimes epic proportions. Until recently, I had delved into local politics because I never planned to be in Paulding so long. But life, mom and dad's death journey, and a recession had other plans for me. And thanks to this governing body, I finally met my neighbors, then put in the hours it takes to get an understanding of the governing authorities that are the overlords of Paulding taxpayers. And I don't like what I learned. I've lived in a lot of municipalities, and this is my fourth little airport, but I have never seen the kind of governmental depravity that I have seen here in this county. I am sure you all see yourselves as good and decent people doing what you think is good. But just because it's good for you doesn't mean it's good. Maybe if I had been in the Sky King fan club when I was 6, always dreaming of having my own airport where I could park all my shiny planes and have big noisy helicopters buzzing overhead all day long, I might love it here too. But my problem is that I live in the real world, where all the people out here get our drinking water out of the ground. And that water runs under your airport. And toxic chemicals you spill on the ground or spray on icy planes gets into the underground springs that run all through this area, which in turn brings your toxic spill to my water faucet. I could go on for hours about the horrible noise and misery that you've rained down on the people of West Paulding, not to mention the absence of taxpayer involvement in the rezoning that created this cancer on God's green earth, but for 5 minutes. To learn more about harming taxpayers, drop by my website at www.pauldingairport.us. Us, the people. Lately, I've learned that this system of governing authorities, like we have here in Georgia, is a perfect way to operate government if your goal is to leave the door wide open for corruption. I have learned that the relationship between Paulding government and the public is not open and honest as advertised, and your outside legal team helps you follow the letter of the law, as they like to call it. If that means creating as many obstacles to truth and justice for the people as is humanly possible without actually stepping over into illegality, congratulations. I have, however, seen no respect for the spirit of the law, and I will pose this question. Is it possible for an action to be not illegal, but yet still be immoral? There are good and decent people out here in the real world who have been irreparably harmed by your fantasy land here at Silvercomb Field. The people who are the collateral damage at the ends of the runway have seen their way of life destroyed, water table polluted, home values wiped away, health under assault from stress and sometimes constant noise. And oh, by the way, here's your tax bill. Sorry it went up, but it's expensive to ruin your life. And you're all so very proud of yourselves. Most people around here think massive government spending is not a solution to economic problems. But here you are, all about massive government spending. I often hear your most ardent aficionados saying it's all about jobs, jobs, jobs. What I see is avarice. And that is no way to govern. This authority exists in a wonderland that is Georgia law, a shadowy world where loopholes that benefit a few and cost the rest of us big time are easier to come by than rednecks and pine trees. And integrity is not something you possess because you get a certificate from Bubba and Earl down at the Integrity Authority. Integrity is doing the right thing, especially when no one is looking. It is the lack of integrity that requires the shadows. I'm praying that the good Lord will show me the way to educate my fellow citizens on why Georgia's governing system leans toward corruption and why it must change. It should be illegal for a government official, from the president to an airport director, to lie and hide the truth from the public. I'm done.
If you'll finish your thought.
I'm done. if that, it should be against the law to lie to the public. If that were the law, this airport would not exist. And I say, thank you for your time and power to the people. Thank you.
Okay. Chris?
Speech. My dream realized. In '96, I was living in a trailer park in Ackworth, paying lot rent. You know, I had a nice little home that I owned, but I did not own the land. And I ran into a couple, an elderly couple that said, well, why don't you buy some property? And that way you won't have to pay lot rent every month. And so I started saving my money, and with the help of my husband, we were able to save enough money to do the very expensive move. You know, moving the trailer was very expensive, buying the land was expensive, having it cleared, you know, having a well, the whole schmear, the septic tank, was extremely expensive. But my dream was realized. You know, even though it was a very modest home on just a couple of acres, I was able to get what I needed in my life. You know, the American dream, I guess, but not the Taj Mahal, okay? So that was when I was 46. Now I'm 64. I'll be 65 this summer. And I find out in October that the airport is going to become commercial. And I thought, what? I saw it on Channel 2. I said, oh, please, God, no. No, please. I worked so hard. Let me tell you what happened. In 2012, before y'all come up with this idea to commercialize this airport, I was also hit by that tornado that hit the airport. You have no idea what it cost us in our retirement money to keep that property and rebuild it. I mean, a lot of money, okay? That was March of 2012. Now here we are, and I've spent all this money. I can't afford to go anywhere else. You know, I'll be 65. I'm already on Social Security. And I'm stuck. I'm stuck with this. And it was also, again, promised it was going to be general aviation only. I can deal with lawnmowers, okay? I can't deal with jets. So all I can say is I just wanted to tell you my story and why it's so upsetting to me that y'all are wanting this to become commercial. It's kind of like disturbing the peace, okay? And there's a lot of people that live out in the woods out here, a lot. And I just wanted to ask y'all, and look y'all square in the face and ask you, do you care? Do you care? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Kathy Helms.
So would you just tell me when you're ready to start? I'll try to tell you when you got about a minute.
Okay, excellent. Good morning, I'm ready. Good morning. I'm going to talk about the taxi. And I'm still a little hoarse, not as bad as I was last week. It's my understanding that the taxiway at Paulding, Northwest Atlanta Airport was originally specified to be 50 feet wide. I believe I've heard Mr. Swafford make that assertion more than once. The reason given for the 35-foot width was because we ran out of money. As a subcontractor that has worked on many government projects over the last 24 years, I've never been able to use that as an excuse to not complete a project according to plans and specs. Here we are, needing to spend nearly $4 million fixing what should have been done to begin with. I'm thinking with proper planning and more accurate job budgets, this could have been prevented when the airport was originally built. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Now we're expanding the taxiway to 50 feet, a project that was started without funding in place. After several legal challenges, you find the construction unable to be completed and claim it must be done immediately because of safety issues. You've asked for and been approved by the Board of Commissioners, also known as the taxpayers of Paulding County, to give you the money for completion of the taxiway expansion. They voted 4-1 to fund this project with no guarantees of repayment. It's my understanding that every pilot is familiar with Unicom and has used this communication for unmanned airports for many years. NOTAMs allow them to get information regarding conditions at any airport they will be flying into. I would think you know Dobbins has, on more than one occasion, closed their taxiways for repairs, notified pilots of such, and went on about their usual business of landings and takeoffs. They conducted flight tests on F-22s with half taxiways. Hartsfield has followed these same procedures when they were working on runways. There should be an FAA manual somewhere around this airport that tells us back taxiing is not illegal, unauthorized, or unsafe. I'm beginning to think the unsafe conditions regarding the taxiway may indeed be a fairy tale. While I surely would never support any unsafe condition, I would hope you wouldn't use a fairy tale as a reason to put fear in citizens unfamiliar with taxiway construction. Now, I'm not a pilot, and I don't claim to be, but I am also not stupid. I've learned more about airports in the last few months than I ever really wanted to know. I research and utilize my resources to make informed, rational decisions and evaluations based on my findings. I think you will determine there are many more just like me, and I would hope in the future that you will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all y'all too for that.
These are our two hiring representatives now on the board. We have selected an industrial broker. We had a meeting, it was Blake and Canatoni and myself that met with interviewed several industrial brokers to try to find a brokerage firm that would list the Paulding Commerce Park for us. And after those interviews, we selected CBRE, which is the largest industrial brokerage firm, not just in the United States, but Atlanta also. And they have a lot of contacts to the table, and they're very good at what they do. So we're going to be partnering with them to help market the park. Attended the International Poultry Expo. It's a 3-day event. Unfortunately, I only got to attend 1 day of it because the snow hit, and spent had 9 hours spent out basically on I-20 with Thad Morris, and he went to the show with me. So we camped out on I-20 at Six Flags, and it was a very, very interesting day. We have some ads that are running right now, Modern Material Handling. That ad is out there. That's going out to 80,000 subscribers. It's in the same magazine as the Interroll ad, and our booth is listed for the MODEX show in that magazine. So we're hoping to draw a lot of traffic and attention to Paulding. The Interroll grand opening is set for March the 16th. They're expecting a pretty big turnout. They've actually turned this into a fundraiser. They're going to have a charity event there with a clay shoot that will be for both Helping Hands of Paulding County and for a group in Atlanta called the Study Hall. Kind of related to the whole opening and with the hospital that was touched on earlier, I have John Bachman scheduled to come out here sometime next week to do a follow-up story on the one he did in 2012 when we announced the Interroll project. And at that time, he profiled the Interroll project and Wellstar under construction. So this is kind of a follow-up to all that, how these two projects have now come to fruition. So that will be probably sometime next week. Our trade show booth will make its debut at MODEX March the 17th through the 20th. I'll pass this around. This is what the booth looks like. That's the design for it. So we're pretty happy with how that turned out. We've started the process of contacting companies that are going to be there at the show to set up some meetings with them. Our website is nearly finished. We expect it to make its launch next month. Looks really good. A lot of great information on there. A lot of, again, it's really oriented towards the folks we work with at Georgia Department of Economic Development, Georgia Power Consultants and companies that may be looking at Paulding County. So that will come out probably in March. We're also looking to do the JEC Americas show, which is a composite show in Atlanta, which will be in June, and we're looking at booth options and space for that. And then finally, as far as projects, we've seen a lot of activity in the last couple of weeks. As Blake had touched on, the Paulding Commerce Park is showing exceptionally well, and I think that has now driven interest from the state to bring more projects to us. So we've seen a couple of projects we've had to respond to. One is a big food processing company. It could be anywhere to upwards of $90 million project. So we put a proposal together for that, and that went out earlier this week. And then we have a auto supplier that is also considering Paulding, and we're one of the few locations in the state for that one as well. So that went out. We had some bad news on Project Pool that we had talked about before, which was the other food processing company. We had made the list of the final 4 locations in Georgia for the project, but I think because of the truck volume that they had, which was over 100 trucks a day, the logistics part killed us. Not being close enough to the interstate for something of that level of truck traffic. It was pretty, even though it was trucks, it was more like a distribution facility. So that's one of those types of projects we're not typically going to be successful getting, but we did make the final 4 on that one. And then finally, we have a meeting tomorrow with a company that manufactures equipment. Again, machinery equipment, when we talk about Interroll and Simmons Engineering and Rocky, that's become one of our big target industries. So we will be meeting with that company tomorrow, and they're interested in Paulding, and that's probably about 35 new jobs that we put in Paulding. And I know that they're very interested in Paulding, so we'll start that process tomorrow with them. Any questions?
Also, the East Town Parkway is opened and made that transition a lot easier and flow of material through there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be the primary truck route, I would think, for most of the companies, whether they're suppliers or finished goods going out from the Paulding Commerce Park. That's going to be the way to go. It's great. It's a great road.
Any other questions for Jamie?
Chairman, as a follow-up to something Jamie mentioned, we did go through the selection process for real estate entity to market the Paulding Commerce Park, and have selected CBRE as our partner for that. As Jamie mentioned, they're the largest industrial marketer in Atlanta and the country. We do have a tentative agreement that Tom has been looking at and I've been looking at. We've not finalized that agreement yet, which is the reason that it's not on your agenda. We're still working out some of the details, but we do have that in the works, and we'll certainly be bringing that to you at the next meeting, if not before then. So to just make you aware that agreement is being finalized at this time.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. We move down to the approval section. Section 3, item A, the document retention policy.
Mr. Chairman, that's the same, but not essentially, again, it is exactly the same document retention policy we did.
Tom will address that.
Yes, this is the same resolution, Chairman, that you approved, the airport authority approved this morning. Basically, is a resolution to the local delegation, asking them to introduce local legislation that would prescribe and define the powers of the Industrial Building Authority as contained in the constitutional amendment that created it in 1962.
Any questions? Have a motion by Mr. Underwood to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Wright. Any discussion? All those in favor?